Hey, you guys, I am super excited to be back for another amazing interview with Miss Raina from Raina Dance Company. I love that name. I really like that name. So she has a virtual program, you guys. So now we get to actually talk to somebody who actually has a full out virtual program, just like myself. And we're going to just kind of ask her some questions so we can see what her program looks like. And if anybody is interested, they can join. Your dancers can join because she's servicing kids all around the world. And it's a competition. So let's get into these questions. So, first, I would like for you to
All
introduce
right,
yourself and then we'll get started.
got it. Well, hello everybody watching, and thank you to Miss Lonnie for reaching out and having me on the Zoom and wanting to give me this interview. But hi, so my name is Raina Neal. I'm the owner of Rain Dance Complex. We're a virtual studio. I'm the head choreographer, the competition director, costume manager, everything in the book right now. I first started teaching dance when I was 16 years old. I started dance at 9, so I started kind of late in the game, compared to other studios have been, ballet students since 2, but I knew that I always had the passion for it. And so I even still continue with dance in school now that I'm also on the cheer team because I'm just in love with the arts. Like I can't get away from it. But I also knew like at 15, 16, that's when I left dance and started to go kind of behind the scenes and felt like I enjoyed being a teacher. So took it from there. I give credit to Youth and Teens Dance Company. That's where I started from. And we did our first competition while I was 16. I only had 4 girls, and we took home the first overall in jazz. So I was really surprised by that. And then, in the pandemic in 2020, that studio, we were kind of at a loss for words because we really were practicing at a rec center. So we didn't know how to make that transition just yet. But I was in school still. So I said, you know what? If my older professors can do Zoom, I'm pretty sure I could do it too. And then, I transitioned there. And then just this year in February of 2022, I decided to, branch away from that and actually start my own business. And I said, well, what's better than making it virtual that I can be in Albany in school and teach? I could be back home in Long Island. I could be in Arizona. I could be in Miss Lonnie in Georgia and still open up my computer and still, teach and educate dancers. So that's a little bit about
Nice.
Rainbows Complex.
And who do you serve? What age group, what demographic do you serve?
And so I teach boys and girls, but I mostly had all females. I only had one little boy named Daniel, but ages 4 to 12. And I like that age kind of because at 4 years old, and I'm also an education major, so I kind of know what those little kids where their brains can, handle this, especially being virtual. So with 4 years old, I really think that they're ready at that point. And up to 12 years old, I kind of like that, the childhood education type of age. And I think even now with my second graders, my 7-year-olds, they've been on Zoom since kindergarten. So they're able to
Mhm.
adapt in with the older scale, my sixth graders, they're able to also adapt it as well. And they're still respectful of everything. They're a little bit busier now, but what kids aren't busy? But that's the ages. So 4 to 12
Okay.
and then boys and girls.
All right, you guys, you heard that. So now your transition online, what did that look like for you? What that transition?
Hmm. Well, I think because I did the transition in 2020, so I guess I can hit on both of those. The transition with the old company that I worked with, it was kind of it was kind of difficult just trying to realize, I think all just the bits and pieces of 2020 in general, like, okay, this mom doesn't get home till 5, and then you had me who wasn't getting out of class until maybe 7. So maybe I could work with the bigger kids in hip hop with my old studio, and then with the little kids, I had to catch them on Saturday at 12. And then some, like, it was just kind of hard to fit all the pieces together. Just scheduling, I'll say scheduling was probably the main thing. And then of course, like internet connections, what students, that you saw in the rec center that would come every Saturday, but the ones who don't have iPads or don't have Wi-Fi at home or they don't have a phone to try and get on. So those were like the biggest kind of struggles. But the transition overall, after we got the scheduling together, it made sense. It made sense. And then especially with Rain Dance Complex, my own, we're already 2 years into, Zoom, Skype. I've done Google Meets, I've done FaceTime, Instagram calls. So that transition wasn't as hard, but especially in 2020. But I think everything was just fresh to everybody. So that was kind of the struggle.
Okay, cool. So your pros and cons to online teaching. So let's just hit that part before we get into anything. So just stay on the pros and cons. So let's talk about the pros of it first.
All right. Pros, definitely you can teach anywhere. You can teach anywhere. Students can hop on anywhere. You know, somebody could be in the living room, somebody could be in the living room doing acro class, somebody could be in their bedroom doing tap. It's definitely that you can take it anywhere. That's the biggest pro that I always have. Definitely that you don't have to meet in person to get the little stuff done. Like I know when I've done costuming or when we have done parent meetings for my kids to compete, you know, I could just hop on a Zoom and we'll get off all those check marks instead of trying to meet up someplace. You know, it's late. Who just wants to, you know, drive out just for a 20-minute meeting and then drive back home? You know, we could just hop on and get stuff done. So it's the convenience of it. Biggest pros for me.
Okay. Now let's talk about the cons that you experience.
Some cons I've experienced has definitely been technology in a sense. I think that's the biggest con, that sometimes Wi-Fi can work out perfectly for students. Sometimes it won't work out for me. I've had times where, and I try and hop on Zoom and be professional, you know, give stuff ready before the actual time. But sometimes Zoom might want to update and it won't tell you until you hop on. Chargers, sometimes kids will be like, oh, my thing is dying, I'll run and get a charger. They don't come back on because it's dead, and then it takes time for it to hop back on. So technology, it's cool, it's the biggest pro, but it's also the biggest con too, for me.
Okay. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now I wanted to ask you, because of course you guys know my program is virtual too. One of the cons that I will like kind of piggyback off of what Raina said can be technology, but what I kind of experienced too was parents thinking just because it's Zoom that the structure should look different. Oh, it's more lax, right? So they'll come and I'm like, no, you know, they can't hop on late, but they're looking at it like, but it's Zoom. And it's like, no, like it's still,
Mhm.
this still is a structured, no different than if I was in person. I've run my program the same way. So that kind of to me has been a con until they grasp like, okay, this is how this program is. She like to the point, this is structure. I got to make sure my kids have their uniform, all of that. So I will kind of just add to that. But other than that, it's been, you know, no issues. All right, so let's talk about your program being a competition dance virtual program, which is different. What does that look like?
That is definitely the biggest part of my agenda that I make sure to start on early. I usually don't start well, it's only been a year, but I start my program at least after January, because this whole time right now that I'm using from August to December is planning time and how I'm going to do that and what students, and now I know that are returning. And then I only do competitions right now in New York. And those like areas range from Long Island, New York, you know, Suffolk, Nassau, and then Albany, Schenectady, New York. Because I know that I can definitely get to those two areas and that I have students there. So
Okay,
that's what competition looks like for me. I make sure to plan out, okay, which ones or which couple of ones and backups that I have for my Long Island students, who can get there, who can't get there. The students that I have upstate, okay, let's plan out something in the capital area so that way the students from Schenectady, the students from Catskill can come up. I've had a student who she was originally from upstate, but she moved to New Jersey, but she still competed upstate last year just because I gave her time, and the parent, you know, she was very grateful for it. She said, okay, yeah, let's try that. You know, we know the area already. Just because we're 2 hours away doesn't mean we can drive up. So I think planning it is that's definitely the biggest part. Execution, I don't find that too hard because, okay, once we get there, hey, put your costume on, let's get ready to go. That's what I prep you for in our one-to-one, privates. But the preparing of it, that is definitely hard. But just to realize where the students are, demographically, and seeing what competitions go up there, having backup plans. That's how it runs. So right now we just compete in New York, of course. But if I had a student, oof, that was in Georgia, that would be kind of a struggle. But hopefully when I branch out and years go on and I get some more driving lessons in, who knows, maybe I could go down there, maybe we'll fly down there for a weekend, and I'll support that student and then I'll come back up and then we're running in Albany. It's a little tricky,
Okay.
but I love it. And
So,
as long
but
as you
what does your program look like outside of, we know where you guys meet up for competition, but how does that look like virtually? So if a student wanting to join this program, what does that look like for them? Are are you sending out videos of choreography? How are they learning? How is class set for them to even prepare for a competition?
Okay, so for my competition kids, they all start off with a solo, which is definitely a privilege in other studios. But I feel for right now, if you're working with me and you're diligent enough and your parent, your mom, and your dad wants to work with me, then hey, let the kid be rewarded with that. Let them have their moment on stage. So they start off with solos. I've done a duet before. That was definitely tricky, but as long as the parents are there, the planning is there, it's doable. But to get the choreography out to them, the student has to have a designated time with me to have a private 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how the age and how quick the kid picks up. But I plan out the music. I send the music to the child so that way they hear it. They get their musicality kind of together. They feel it. They realize, okay, it's a lyrical. Let me get my emotions together. Or if it's a jazz, I know it has to be upbeat. Miss Raina's gonna hit those accents. Boom, boom, boom. So the music goes out to them, and then I actually do the choreography. I'll run like the whole 2-minute dance just in the video by itself. And then another video will go out to them of me breaking it down. So that goes to them, at least, well, some of my students that are competing in March in Long Island, they already have their stuff now. Okay. And then after those go out, I let the students feel that out. And then, of course, we've already planned those privates. So then the privates go in. I don't expect them to have it done the first day. There are some students that they just love it that much that they haven't. I'm like, okay, all right, y'all already know it. But we plan it out from there, no matter how many privates we have, even if it isn't until March and you're finished with your solo now, there's always something to work on and there's always something to perfect, whether it's that one pointed toe that keeps flexing when you come down from the cartwheel, your facial expressions, your exit, your off stage. We also practice on Zoom during our privates, what do you say if you get called up for an overall? You stand in fifth position. What's your teacher's name? They might say choreographer, they might say instructor. I try and teach all the students, what are those other synonyms? Who would you want to thank? Yes, the etiquette, exactly. That's a big thing that, you would think that it could kind of go over your head with being virtual and not seeing the kids, but it's something that has to be done. So that's just always on my agenda. Who do you think? If this MC asks you a funny question, like, what's your favorite style of dance? What would you respond with? What's the name of your studio? How do you pronounce it? We go over all those things in the private. So they get the choreography, get the song, they get the choreo, get the broken down video from me, and then we start the one-on-ones. During the one-on-ones, we go over costuming, shoes, how you act when you get there, the etiquette throughout the whole 6-hour process. Maybe you can leave, you can come back, you need to be here on time. And then, the parents, they can sit in if they want to. Usually they walk around, they make dinner, who knows, but that's fine with me. Sometimes the students, sometimes it's better when the parents aren't in the room or on the Zoom.
On the Zoom, yeah.
That's how.
So what is the practice leading up to I know you mentioned one-on-ones because they have solos. Is it so many hours they have to complete before March or before January? Like, what does that look like right now? What are they doing right now?
Okay, so the students that right now that are competing in March, well, no, there's one in February that's coming up too, actually. February, they're going to Royal. Those students, it doesn't really matter how long or the hours. I think we just keep going. We just keep going, but there is a period, and I even did it when I was teaching in person at the old studio. say if it was a week before the competition, or if it's that Saturday I see you and we're competing on the following Saturday, that week, don't come to class, don't tumble outside, don't tumble where no parents can't see you. So, that they're safe for the competition, rest your body, do your bio freeze, do your tiger palm, whatever you need to relax, get in the zone. But we practice all the way up to it. If there's that's I'm like, it goes from 45 minutes to an hour. If there's a time where I see maybe my 8-year-old, we stretched, we had our etiquette about awards. I see you run the dance about twice, and if it's still perfect, and I see, we'll end the Zoom there.
Okay.
I won't
Now, is
overpost
it a
them, but we'll
schedule?
still we'll still keep going.
Okay, is it a schedule? So if I'm a mom and I'm interested, I come across your page, I come to want to sign up. Is there something somewhere on the website that says, okay, my daughter practices, or this group practice on technique Tuesdays? Is it a schedule that they follow every week?
Yes, I did have a schedule for the 2022 season, and they get that once they put the job form in an email. If they're taking stretching class, if they're taking level and tumbling, if they're taking not acro, excuse me, if they're taking the lyrical, if they're taking the contemporary, the hip hop. Yeah, that's definitely on there. It's always set times. That time never changed. It probably will change now in the 2023 season, just because I have a different my schedule is different for school now. But those times, and they always reoccur on the same day. Those
Okay.
classes, they always go for an hour, typically after 6, because I think that's when
Okay.
I'm done. Students are home, hopefully homework is done. Maybe they can dance, have dinner, and then you're off for the night because I got school the next morning.
Okay, that's where I was getting at. What
Okay.
is the typical, again, because it brings me into the last question, is like, if some parent is interested in a program, what would that look like for them logging on to your website? Is it a program where it goes year round? Is it, when do they get a break? Do they go all genres? Do they dance at another studio and then they come to you for competition? Like, let's talk about what that looks like.
Okay. So say if a student signs up, during that new year, they'll sign up with me. They'll be put in the app Band. I've discovered about the Band app. We used to use GroupMe, but I discovered about the Band app. They'll get the form there. They have my number. I typically like to speak to them, excuse me, one-on-one too, to see what your child's interested in. So say if they're doing lyrical on Wednesdays and flexibility Fridays, that was really popular the past season. They will log in. It's typically after 6. I don't really know what my schedule is going to be like for the upcoming school year, so I can't really say. Or excuse me,
Okay.
dance season. But it would typically be after 6, so they will log in. I do have down on my contract at least, a 5-minute grace period. Because, once, let's say if it's 6:15, once it's 6:18, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to stretch. I hope you guys are all warm. Let's start our 20 jumping jacks. Let's get into it. I don't mind if I'm in my straddle and I see, okay, Jessica's logging in, it's 6:20. Okay, let me let you in right quick. But I do have a, grace period. And then, we're stretching. We'll learn, say, if it's flexibility Friday. We'll be working on, chin stands, but we're making sure that we really stretch out our back, stretching out our wrists, stretching out our neck, and we'll go over, or if it's jazz class, we'll go over like a combo, learning how to teach kids to pick up quickly, especially if they want to be on the competition team. We have to make sure you can hit access 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Some kids don't know that yet. They don't know the language of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it starts again at 1. We're teaching all of that during that hour period. After that, we do a cool down for the last 5 minutes. I always do, but they love a show and tell. I'm like, okay, if y'all want to show and tell for the last 5, or they're like an improv challenge and they want me to pick a winner, but I always gotta say, oh, you guys are all winners at the end. That's how a class day typically goes for just regular scheduled class. And it'll always occur weekly. We did do winter break. So that was like February. And then the school year, excuse me, the dance season, it ended in May for me for my first year. So it was
Okay.
February to May, and all the kids were all sad. I was like, I know. I'm like, trust me, we're coming back, y'all. We're coming back. Hopefully I can start earlier in the season, which is my goal. I want to start a month earlier, gain more competition kids. So I mean, I got to see, just as soon, because my reoccurring competition team, I already know their schedule. That's what I'm working with now. But for the kids who are going to start in January, if they're interested, I gotta still let them in. I can't deny them that too. So that's scheduling too.
Okay. So, okay, cool. So right now, so your schedule from, if I'm hearing this right, so you guys typically in dance, it's just a traditional thing. Most people start their dance season in September. So you started in January. Am I hearing that right?
Starting the new year. Yes, ma'am.
So you
So far,
start
so far.
every January.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you guys just know that. So if you are interested, that means your child wouldn't start until that season. And then the first competition is when?
First competition for Long Island children is in February, but I also have one in March because the February
Okay.
kids I know that are coming back. But for the kids who are starting in January, I asked them right off the bat in the contract, are you interested in your child doing a solo? For them who say yes, I explained to them it's a big deal, especially if your child is younger, especially or if she or he hasn't danced before. But I'm going to prepare them just as much as possible. If they say yes, if they pick that designated time, if everything seems right, we get the ball rolling, so that way those kids can be ready for March. And if they're not ready
Okay.
for March, then there's also options, in May and in April.
Okay.
Got a whole
So
list.
the ones who stay with you, right? And your season
Mhm.
end in May, right? Your season will end in May. They come back, they'll return back in January.
Yeah, they'll return back in January, but the competition ones, like I'm even working with them now, like those select couple kids.
This is where I'm going. This is where I'm going because that's a huge gap. That's what I was getting at. Like, that's why I was asking, what are they doing now in the midst? Do they dance with somebody else? And, kind of thing. Cause that's like with me, because I teach acro is year round, but they dance. They're conditioning with me because again, to do competition, that's a whole next level. So they're training. Okay, so that's what I was getting at. So you guys make sure you understand this because I want to make sure as I put it out that you're understanding the scheduling. So this is more like a half year winter spring program. You guys, so it's going from January to around May-ish.
May.
So
Yes, ma'am.
that way you kind of know. Okay, so that's good. That is good. So what is the name of your company again? And what is your website so they can find you?
Okay, it's Rain Dance Complex, and it's Rain as in like royalty. So REIGN Dance DNCE Complex. And right now we only have an Instagram. This is my second year that's coming up, so I'm working hard on just building stuff. I thank you, Miss Lonnie, for even giving me this time to promote it. And she's always thinking about me. Lonnie really is. She has a heart of gold, and she's always on live giving her inspiration. So definitely continue to support her. But yes, Rain Dance Complex on Instagram. My kids, oof, love those kids. They work hard. And I'm always taking new students, no matter if you're here, there, everywhere, we'll make it work.
All right, you guys, that was good.